Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Southern Cross University's Open Day 2023. My name is Jo, and I'm the Future Student Officer here at Southern Cross University, and I'll also be the host on this panel for Music and Creative Arts. The panel goes for 25 minutes, allowing 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions. Today we've got a fantastic lineup, so I thank you all for coming, and as we do have so many amazing people in front of me, I'll get you to introduce yourselves and say where you're from and a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Barry Hill. I'm the course coordinator for the Southern Cross Uni Contemporary Music Program. I'm currently living here in Lismore, but I think originally I was from Canberra, but I made my home up here now.
Hi, my name is Cara Cumming. I am now alumni of SCU. I graduated in 2021, and I now live and is based in Byron Bay. And now I work as tour managing and operations in the music world.
Hi everybody, my name is Kalia. I'm a current Bachelor of Contemporary Music student at Southern Cross. I'm also a Rolling Stone recipient for the scholarship last year, and I have a year to go of this course, and I live in Byron, and in my spare time I do gigs and hang out at the beach.
I also like the beach. My name is Marion Tubbs. I am the course coordinator for our art and design degree here. I'm very privileged and happy to live on Bundjalung country here. I also originated in Canberra, via Queensland and a whole bunch of other different places. I'm a practicing artist and writer. I curate from time to time, but I'm a very passionate educator when it comes to the future of art and design in regional areas.
Thank you, Marion. My name is Uwe Turton. I live in South Gandarimba, that's near Lismore towards Casino. I moved to this region 2 years ago from the Sunshine Coast, and I totally love Lismore and the Northern Rivers. I'm the course coordinator for digital media. And my background, obviously, I have an accent. I'm from Germany, came 22 years ago. I'm a designer, digital artist, and a student. I study digital fabrication, so it never stops. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Uwe, can I start with you by asking about the different creative degrees that you can study here at Southern Cross University?
Well, it's a question for the three of us, for Barry and Marion and I, so I will answer my part. So, as I mentioned before, you can study digital media, and that encapsulates filmmaking, radio podcasts, photography, visual communication, and animation.
So with the Bachelor of Art and Design, we cover from first year very discipline-specific learning, so the fundamentals of drawing, painting, 3D fabrication that Uwe lends his hand and knowledge on, which is wonderful. Sculpture and spatial practice, video art practice, and we move then into more independent and collaborative, but interdisciplinary studio practice through the second and third years. Then we also have a master's by thesis and a PhD.
Thanks, Marion. I suppose the contemporary music program here at Southern Cross University is quite unique. When we talk about contemporary music, I'm talking about music that's happening now. So we are one of the very few music programs around the world that actually takes you through as a student potentially a whole range of different musical styles and ways of playing. We are a technically focused course in that we have one-on-one teaching as well as a focus on the music industry. So we sort of tend to recognise that these days as a musician you need to understand technology, the industry and your creative practice. And so I think the contemporary music program is really all about developing your music craft and developing your ability to understand the industry, and then give you some opportunities to network into the industry and create a career.
Oh, that's brilliant and fantastic range of degrees there. Kalia, can I ask you what your favourite thing about studying at Southern Cross University and the facilities here?
My favourite thing about studying at Southern Cross would definitely be the facilities, hands down. So at D Block, which is just up the way a little bit on the hill, we have a massive auditorium that would be double the size of this whole room. And on a weekly basis, we get access to the stage, the lighting, all the tech crew. And then in the same block, we have 4 different studios where you can record your own work whenever you want, with the tech crew as well. And we have just the most incredible range of staff with just like networks, really good insights into the industry, but they also help us, and it's a really like personal experience. It's like a community, and yeah, I'm going to be sad when I leave. So yeah.
Can I add to that? Yes, as I mentioned before, I just came 2 years ago from the Sunshine Coast, and when I saw the equipment and the facilities, I was blown away. It's state of the art, and as you said, the technicians, they have years and years of experience, and they know what they are doing, and yeah, mind-blowing.
Thank you. Kalia, can I also ask as well, how many contact hours do you have with lecturers each week? Obviously, you say that you go into the studio a fair bit to do your own thing. Do you have contact hours with your lecturers as well?
So on a weekly basis, we have about 8 hours in class on campus. It's definitely a hands-on degree. We're there every week. So we have one-on-one lessons with our specific areas. So mine, I have an hour with my vocal teacher a week independently, and then we do that every single week. And then on Thursdays, like this morning, for example, we had concert where people get up and perform, and then that's with our peers and we offer feedback. And then on Mondays, it's usually theory-based. So we're in the labs.
Thank you. Barry, can I ask, what does the interview or portfolio process look like, obviously, when you apply for the degree?
Okay, so if you want to apply for this degree, we ask students to contact us and get students to give us a sense of their musical background. We're not expecting all students to have studied at a great conservatorium style level. We're not expecting students to be fully formed musicians by the time they get here. We're just expecting students to be able to give us an idea of their passion for music, what the sort of things that they've done in the past, maybe give us an example of the best musical experience that they've had, and maybe support that with any sort of multimedia content, like some recordings or some videos of themselves performing, that give us a sense of where they're at as a musician. We also try and get a sense of what their career aspirations are, because we obviously want to support people who are passionate about music and who understand what sort of things they'd like to do. So it's sort of like an audition, but it's just us getting to know you a little bit more. That process is quite simple. I don't think it's particularly onerous or scary.
For Art and Design, we've done away with the portfolio interviews. It's a sort of crossover to a lot of what other universities do, which is that you can really email me if you want to have a chat, and often those chats are more lengthy with postgrads, masters and PhDs, but we now encourage people to just apply directly to the degree. You do not have to have drawn a thing in your life prior, because art can be anything and it does not need a sort of discipline training before you get to us.
Yeah. The same goes for the Bachelor of Digital Media. You do not need to create a portfolio or a showreel to get in, just an interest, and off you go.
And that's great to know. Thank you for sharing. I do have a question that I'll ask all three of you again. Obviously, career thinking for students wanting to come in. What sort of paths do they have after they graduate through the different courses?
So for art, and I have faced this question since I became an artist, or had an aspiration to become an artist when certainly my parents would have preferred that I would become a lawyer. I said, look, I'm going to do an art degree first and then I'll get around to doing the law degree later, which bought me some time. And then, in fact, to speak to my boring trajectory of going through masters and PhD and exhibiting in all sorts of amazing institutions internationally and nationally, I'd like to talk to my regional graduates of the last 3 years. They are now occupying studios around Lismore, making their own artwork, but they're also employed in our great regional galleries that we have, the Northern Rivers Community Gallery, the Lismore Regional Gallery, Grafton Regional Gallery, and the Tweed Regional Gallery. They're also running their own artist-run spaces like Elevator RE, which has done so much work post-floods for this community, both in fundraising and also putting on exhibitions. We have a series of prizes that set up our graduates to enter into their first initial solo shows at different regional galleries in this space. And then we also, because we have design, it's art and design, we have graduates that leave with the ability to be graphic designers, to be studio assistants, to be photographic assistants. And so many different options, and a lot of these artists, these graduates, do all of them, and curating, and writing, and emerging educators.
The list is endless by the sounds of it, which is great to hear. And Uwe, do you want to?
Yes, I mean, there is this buzzword, the term of creative industries, and all the students that graduate from those degrees, they can work in the creative industries, and this is an umbrella term. So it can be in an insurance company, for a bank, for real estate agents looking after the marketing, the promotion material, etc., etc. So it's huge, and we have the title digital media, and when you think about digital devices, all the content that has been and needs to be created for those devices is done by our graduate students. So it's a big field. Yeah.
Just picking up on something that Uwe just said then, if you think of the idea of media, if you think about the world around you, if you think about that world without any sort of media, I think it helps get a sense of the importance of media in everyday society and the amount of people who are working in media and multimedia industries. In relation to music, I think it's a similar sort of thing. Imagine we're walking into a shopping mall, imagine we're walking into any sort of space these days. It's very rare to find a space that does not have music in it. And as well as the physical spaces, we have now the digital realm of social media and just media communications in general, where you need film music, you need music for various websites, you need music for social media, you need music for TV shows, for Netflix shows, for lots of different types of media now requires music and audio production as part of it. So our graduates, really, we encourage them to create a network, an industry network in the part of the industry, and so that can be audio technology, that can be composition, that can be music performance in a variety of different ways and fields. We encourage them to develop a network of career possibilities within the degree program. So that's part of doing things like professional placements, doing independent projects where this year you get to go overseas and meet people in Nashville, in Los Angeles and New York to actually try and just get your foot in the door, so to speak, because the music industry is really about creating a network and then showing that network your potential, which hopefully we've helped you realise here at the degree course.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. Thank you. Kyra, I'm going to go to you. we would love to hear what you've been up to since graduating. I heard you've been very busy, and yeah, if you don't mind sharing what you've been up to.
So when I was here at Southern Cross University, I had a lot of fortunate opportunities. That comes in the sense of work experience, work placement. I originally came to SEU to become a music teacher, but I fell in love with sound production and live events. And from that, I was able to join a team on Blues Fest in Byron Bay. I did some work experience there, doing stuff in Lismore, so like the Lismore Lantern Parade. And then from there, before graduating, I actually landed a job as a sound engineer at the Beach Hotel in Byron Bay. So I was there for 2 and a bit years. And then from there, I am now in my current job, which kind of moved away from the sound engineering. When I was at the Beach Hotel, I kind of started to book the bands, join their admin team, put on events. And now I work in the touring world of the music world, which is so much fun, but it is hard work. Very busy, always around the clock, but it's definitely rewarding. It's so much fun. My current role now is touring operations coordinator. So within that, I work with a number of artists, obviously setting up their tours that they go on, whether it's in Australia, overseas. That goes from anywhere from advancing a show, getting a show ready, making sure that they have like all of their accommodation, their travel, like everything to do with a tour. Also off the back of that, I work with festivals as well. So working in the artist relations department. So that's pretty much looking after the bands and the artists that come through. And since then, I've been fortunate to go on a couple of tours. My most recent one, I just went to Europe with the DJ Fisher. That was definitely a whirlwind, definitely heaps of fun, but yeah.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. I was just going to say you've just come back from Europe, and I was going to ask what the most rewarding part of your career has been so far, but that might be what you've just done.
Yeah, I guess just overall the most rewarding part of my career is meeting the connections and networking through the industry. Like the people that I have met in the last year is insane. I've met like massive artists around the world that everyone would be familiar with. And also when I was in Europe, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to the owner of Coachella. That was pretty big. I was kind of starstruck myself by still trying to compose that professionalism. But yeah, overall for me in the touring world is seeing that show put together, getting to the end product of a tour and the artist being super happy with it going. And obviously for people who love music that go to those shows, seeing the production that gets put on, yeah, that's probably the most rewarding part.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must be so rewarding. I do have a final question for you. What advice would you give to future students to, inspire them and, if they were in your shoe like back then, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, definitely hard work doesn't go unnoticed. Definitely, hard work is the biggest thing, I guess, in my sense, but also it shows. Also, definitely the biggest thing in the industry is knowing what you know, of course, but connections and networking through the industry as well is a massive thing. Once you start to meet a certain group of people, then they introduce you to another group of people, and they could be bigger than that first group of people that you met. Starting out in the industry, volunteering and doing work experience is the biggest thing. That's how I started. I didn't expect to be in the big guns straight up. Definitely the work experience and volunteering definitely helps. And yeah, that's
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. I think we're getting quite close to the end of this panel, as much as I want this to last all night because it's so interesting. I just want to say a huge thank you for all of you joining us tonight. Your knowledge and insight has been fantastic. I do want to open it up to the audience to see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you. How do the online components of the degrees, how are they delivered, how are they assessed, what's the student experience for the online delivery?
I suppose I can respond to that, and in a sense, the part of, I suppose, what makes Southern Cross University a unique university at the moment is that it does teach in this different model. I suppose it's now known as the Southern Cross model. Within the creative arts and contemporary music, that model is sort of, I suppose, focused on the creative arts in a way in that we don't necessarily stick with lectures and online learning, so to speak. There's a blended approach. So there are online courses or online sessions for some components of the course, but not all. I think what we're trying to do in designing the course within the Southern Cross model, this is the contemporary music program, is to take the best of giving people an online repository of information, of resources that they can refer to, and saves them going to the library and photocopying things like I used to do when I was at university. But we also then combine that with a practical element. So I know within the Southern Cross model there is an online component, and then there is a face-to-face component that we try and make complement each other as much as possible. So I suppose that, as well as that, within the contemporary music program, we also have a focus on these concert sessions, these one-on-one tutorials, and sort of group creative practice workshop ensemble sessions. So I think it's the best of both worlds within the music program in terms of online delivery and resourcing and face-to-face teaching.
Absolutely. So we're very passionate about our facilities and being practical and learning real-life skills. So we use our workshops, and we are studio-based, not including a couple of years of COVID where there was sculpture delivered from my kitchen table, and it was weird, but we got through, and we got great graduates coming through with a great sense of humour and resilience. But for the most part, our units that are taught online are theory. That works for people because I know that we have students that travel from Brisbane, from the Gold Coast, from Taree. So we need to be flexible with people with real life situations and jobs, and so for instance the theory works that can be delivered online and recorded, but we also have a repository of online resources for every single practical unit that relates to a theme in contemporary art, such as failure or installation or repetition. So there's these sort of modes where students can really delve into thematics that we have spent time on researching and bringing together. So there's that self-access for the online, but we're really passionate about students coming in and creating a culture in the studio.
Thank you. And were there any other questions? The panellists will be sticking around for the next 30 minutes down in the student garden. So if anyone does want to continue these discussions, and it's the most perfect time to pick their brains and, ask for advice and ask those questions. The student garden's just straight through the plaza and the white tent down there if anyone wants to join them and ask any questions. But again, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today, and thank you all for coming along today. I hope you've all had a great day, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.